Every day, you make decisions that affect you and the people you care about. So do your elected officials. That's why elections are so important, because you are picking the leaders who will make choices that directly impact you and your community. Vote411.org is your tool for accurate and unbiased election information, whether you're registering to vote or learning more about your local candidates. Your vote is your megaphone. Use it to pick the leaders you trust. Get online, get the facts, and make your voice heard on Election Day.
Moving forward.
All right, so
Okay.
for those who don't know you, please let us know who you are and what office you're running for.
Okay. So my name is Michelle Miley Galimba, and I am running for Hawaii County Council to represent District 6. District 6 runs from, it's a huge district. It runs all the way from Volcano to Honolo on the Big Island, on Hawaii Island, which is basically the whole southern half of the Big Island. And so I was born in the district at South Kona, and grew up there in South Kona and Ka'u. Then my family moved to Oahu for about 10 years, and so I went to school over on Oahu. And then we moved back, and we've been back here in the southern part of the Big Island for, I don't know, 30 years or something. Let's see, I'm a cattle rancher by trade, and I've been doing that for about 25 years. But I also have a PhD in comparative literature. I was thinking about being a professor for a while, but I actually kind of fell back in love with agriculture. So, I kind of like a little bit different kind of background for a rancher.
Dig it. All right. So, before we get into your campaign, we're doing a little education for the listeners. Could you please explain in your own words what the office you're running for does?
So the county council is basically the legislative branch of the county government. The county council can, create new laws or regulations for the county. But a lot of the work, as I understand it, is sort of permitting, sort of approving permits and other sorts of regulations from other parts of the county government. And there's also sort of advocating for your district as well. So there's sort of multiple parts to being a county council member. But the key, the sort of core element is that legislative aspect.
So you gave us a little backstory about yourself, and so what made the what made the ultimate leap into cattle ranching for you? Like, I mean, you expressed that shift, but I'd love to know a little more about that before we talk about your campaign.
Could you repeat that? Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Your shift from literature to cattle ranching. I'm just amazed by that. So if you could touch a little more on that, like what drove you that direction?
So, I guess, I'm kind of a follow your bliss kind of a person. It was really just sort of falling back in love with all of that. And being outdoors and being around the animals. And there's also just something really sort of sane and satisfying, both. About being in ranching and agriculture. And I think, it's kind of a funny thing. It seems really strange, but I'm sort of not the only person that sort of made that transition. I think people in literature kind of have a sort of desire to see like the big picture in a way, to see everything, the whole human experience through art, in our case, the writing arts. And there's actually a part of agriculture that is like that because it's so foundational to everything else that we do as a civilization that it's sort of there's more of a nexus there than it might seem.
Dig it. So, what's the big focus of your campaign? What are you looking at the most right now?
I guess that sort of the main reason that I'm running is just to sort of represent my district, and we are just probably one of the biggest districts and the most rural in the state as far as like on this county level, and so I feel like we need strong representation, and I do have sort of a very broad background coming from it is very much an agricultural rural district, and so I feel like my background in agriculture is it's a good fit. But I also sort of have a lot of experience working with county and state government, so I kind of understand what works, what you can do at the county level, what you can do at the state level, and what works at the federal level. Not that I've held elective offices before, but I've been on a lot of like committees and commissions and things like that. For instance, I was on the charter commission for the county of Hawaii, so kind of got to look at the founding documents of the county, which is the county charter. It's kind of like the constitution of the county. And so those kinds of, and also was on the board of agriculture for the state, and worked at USDA committees. So all of those kind of experiences, I think, make me a good representative for this district. And I think this district also has a lot to offer the island and even the state, because we've been through a lot in the last couple of years with the pandemic and all of the disruptions and distortions that it has caused. And I think it's a real wake-up call that we need to have a very resilient economy and society here in Hawaii, because we are way out here in the middle of the Pacific. And one of my friends I'm lucky to have him as a friend. His name is Chad Buck, and he's one of the biggest food distributors in Hawaii. And he tells a story about how he was literally having to use his sort of social capital or his business capital during the pandemic to sort of make sure that the food kept coming to Hawaii. When there was, in a certain period early on the pandemic, there was that sort of stage where the shelves were going bare and the shipping was just really messed up. And he had to sort of, say, hey, we're out here in the middle of the Pacific. You need to send us some food, and rather than sending it to Southern California or wherever. So that's a real wake-up call. We really do need to diversify our economy. I mean, that's one step, one part of becoming more resilient. And I think we also need to be really careful to make sure our economy is more equitable. And I think those two actually go together in a way. A more diversified economy can be a more equitable economy where more people have sort of access to opportunity and access to being entrepreneurs in agriculture, so that everyone can contribute to being making that sort of resilient economy come into being. So that's really what I'm about, what I want to be about at the county council.
Dig it. So, do you have any like examples of policy or just um, mission goals in general that could kind of like help shed a light onto like what you mean in that general aspect that you just explained?
Well, there's a lot of things that we could do, I think, and in general, agriculture has not been given sort of attention
Or a
and
budget?
funding that it should have been given.
Yeah.
This whole time, we've sort of focused on some other sectors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just a lot. Like, for instance, using we do have some county land that is, and it's over 1,000 acres over in Hamakua that belongs to the county, and it could be used for agriculture. And I know there's been a lot of sort of attempts, but again, sort of funding and having like a fund to support that and to make sure that opportunity, that land is available to as many people as possible. We need to have projects that have a good chance of being successful, of course. So there's sort of a I think a coaching, training, and preparation aspect to that, not just sort of saying, here's some land, see what you can do. But there's a lot of, there's a really excellent program at the University of Hawaii that's been growing for years. It's called Go Farm, and they've been training farmers for many years. So sort of bringing those kind of resources together and then finding the funding to make all of that work. That's sort of one, or it's a sort of a three different things that make up one concrete way that we could diversify our economy and become more resilient.
So one thing I'm asking every candidate, what do you feel folks in the community can be doing right now? And not just for your district, but for Hawaii.
Just, I think, being involved in government, I think that's really important. I think there's, people have a tendency, there's sort of it's fashionable to be very cynical about government. Mm-hmm. And not without, reason, with some of the corruption scandals that have been happening. I can understand that cynicism to a certain degree, but it's not going to get any better by being cynical. I think being involved in however small a way is really important because it is our government. And it's only going to be as good as we make it. So I think that's what I think is really important. Just talk to your representatives, find an issue and get involved around it. That kind of thing.
Dang it. So before you go, could you let everybody know how to follow, support, or join your campaign?
Sure. So I have a website. It's votegalimba.com. And I also have a Facebook page. There's my personal Facebook page, Michelle Galimba. I also have a campaign page, Friends of Michelle Galimba. So you can find me on Facebook. I think that's there's a contact form on my website, and I really enjoy getting emails letting me know about people's issues.
Well, mahalo for coming on today. I'm glad we had the time, and I would love to be able to reconnect with you in a few weeks before the primary and see how things are going.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Aloha.
Aloha. Rabbit Holes is a Manawa Cow production. This episode was produced by Kawika Hoke and Sarah Rodriguez. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast platforms to add our weekly episodes to your queue.